Hello, everybody. I'm Shane. I'm still eating a piece of chocolate because I wasn't really going to start streaming until I got through with my piece of chocolate. And then Steve raids with 74 people, so figured I would hop on, right? How's everybody? Steve, thanks again for the raid. And hello to all of those people that were... You stream when I say so. Make eye contact and establish dominance, right? How's everybody? Welcome in, welcome in, welcome in. I was very much not ready to go, so I still have I did have a great anniversary. We went... So last week... I think it was last week. Was it last week? Yeah, last Monday was the 18th anniversary of my wife and my oh man, I hate English sometimes. It was the first date, the anniversary of our first date. How about that? I'll just say it that way. Though my brain now hurts to try to figure out how to say that the correct way. Anyway, I was sick on the 19th and came home and slept for about 4 hours straight. And then we were considering doing the celebrations on Wednesday, which is our sort of traditional go out night if we're going to go out. And we always do something, even if it's just like order a pizza. And then apparently whatever I had, I'd given to Brittany. So she was sick on Wednesday. So we ended up finally going out on Saturday after she felt better. And I've got to sneeze now. Whew, that was a big one. Anyway, so hey everybody. And if you were in Steve's chat, I was in there just a minute ago running my mouth about Israel history and who counts as Semites and what passages of the Bible that people tend to use to make weird predictions. But that's who I am. It's kind of what I do. I don't drink, but I know things. But let me say hello to everybody. Chip is here. Cave Geek is here. Tendarios is here. Uncle Bill is here. Caldeo is here. Steve Sketches and 74 members of his party are here. Viper is here. I hope everybody's doing okay, and I hope the world is treating you nicely. I've actually had an okay day. Work went okay, classes were fine. I was tired for a lot of the day. I came home. There's Foggage. What up, Foggage? Good to see you. Got home, changed into more comfortable clothes out of work clothes, and then my wife and me and the dog all just ended up taking a nap together on the bed because we were all just like, yeah, it's nap time. Right. Paul's Monty Python for this. Animal Chin is like, hey, that's I'm expecting a certain standard of entertainment now. I can quote a lot of Monty Python. Depends on where you were and in what movie about whether or not. I guess you could have been watching Flying Circus. So it was the Dead Parrot sketch. Okay, I don't know if I can hang up that level of skill around here. So. I am not that funny, nor am I that clever. So, I don't know if I'm going to be able to to live up to that particular metric or not. I know stuff. I appreciate the faith. So yeah, everybody, if you haven't been around here before, I suspect a lot of you have. But if you haven't been around before, my name is Shane. I teach history and sociology at college, and we talk about history on stream here. And we try to do it in a way that isn't boring as crap, because I know that a lot of people have had very negative and very boring experiences with history before. And I just don't like that, right? I'd prefer people to see history for the cool stuff that it is and not the boring stuff that people make it, right? So that's sort of the I guess, ethos of the stream here. And we'll end up going off on a tangent about something, and I'll go off on some rant or something like that about how dumb something is, and everybody will just sort of lose the train of thought, and then usually Cave will hit me with a get on with it So there's a direct Monty Python reference. One of my point redemptions is just "get on with it" in all caps. Yeah, there we go. Get on with it. So I do tend to tangent pretty hard. Yeah. I'm. Can't I have just a wee bit of peril? Oh no, it's far too perilous. Anyway, tonight we're doing Adventures in History, and we're starting a new cycle around the world. Woo! So we do history in chronological order on Thursdays, but we do things by regional history, and this helps us sort of keep things in line. It's impossible to do everything that happened in the world one year at a time because that just clutters everything up. So we take time in a bit of chunks, and this chunk is actually going to be a very important chunk because the 1200s and 1300s see so much change in the world. This is such a huge part of ancient history, and this is going to see systemic change in just about every major country and civilization on Earth, right? So we are having a tangent about tangents. What's up, Junk Collector? How's it going? This period of time, the 1200s and the 1300s is so important for the modern world. So much of what we think about today, and so much of the politics and religion and science and stuff that we have in our everyday world comes from this period of time. So it's going to be an interesting series of streams as we have looped back around the globe, and we're going to pop up today in Japan. To be completely honest, I am probably a bit overindulgent on Japanese history. This is because I have a very soft spot in my heart for Japanese history, and I'm probably going to overemphasize them every time we come back around. Historically speaking, they are not a global power during this period. I just give them a stream every time because I want to and I like it. So it's my stream, I can do what I want to. I get to make the rules, and the rules say that Japan gets special streams. So there we go. Have I ever used GIS? Yes, I have. I've used ArcGIS before, which is super expensive and basically cost prohibitive, but super duper cool. I have used some of the stuff that's like open source, but like plugs into Google Earth. I've used some of that. So there's some software that will allow you to do stuff like build GPS maps off of pins in Google Earth. So you export the stuff out of Google Earth as KMZ, and it allows you to sort of make things like maps and stuff like that in the freeware. Most of those are very clunky and not necessarily easy to use, and they try to get Google Earth to do most of the lifting, which I can completely understand from a coding perspective. But the utility of those is limited, and the output on those looks sometimes rather rudimentary. But yeah, I mean, I'd be interested in looking at it if it's any good. I'm sure it's mutual between you and Japan. I seriously doubt it. I don't know if Japan loves me. I'm not big in Japan. I mean, I might be tall in Japan, and I probably weigh more than a lot of people in Japan, but I'm not big in Japan in that way. Got to miss the first decade or so for food. Hey, food is important, right? It's what keeps us all going, quite literally. That's a really great food today. I had leftovers from a Mediterranean place that we went to yesterday. It's a new place that's opened up here in my city, and I was super impressed. Oh my gosh. It's called a Mediterranean restaurant, but what it really is Middle Eastern food. And you can't really call a restaurant in the region that I live a Middle Eastern restaurant, right? You can't say Lebanon and Syria food because it's just not going to go over. So you call it Mediterranean. But I looked at the menu ahead of time and I was like, oh, I think this is Lebanese food just by the dishes that they had. And the guy said, yeah, it's mostly like Lebanese and Syrian. But oh my gosh, it was so good. Oh, dude, it was so good. It's some of the best food that I've had in that style of food that's not from that area. Leon Hurt or Leon Hart? Lionheart, I bet that's it. There we go. Yeah. What's up and welcome in. And thanks for the follow and welcome to the adventure. We're being visited by the puppy. Should we do puppy cam? Should we do puppy cam and get the puppy? All you're going to really get right now is the butt. Because this is pretty much all that the puppy is letting me get to, is the butt. So here's some puppy butt. You want to come over? Kaylee, come over here. Kaylee, come over. Oh, there we go. There's the puppy. You want to look up here and see me? No, you just want scratches? Oh, yes. Want scratches. Oh, my goodness. Shane doesn't believe the Japanese love him, but he's seen the anime Okishiro Gaijin. Yeah, pretty much, right? Oh, yes. Here's the puppy. This is Kaylee. You want to say hello? No, you just want to get scritches? Oh, yes. Got to get scritches. I'm trying to get her in frame, and she keeps moving her head around. There we go. There's the puppy. That's a good girl. You gonna shake? There we go. There's a good shake. Yeah, that's a good girl. Oh, my goodness. It's a puppy. It's a puppy. Everybody love the puppy. This is the mascot of the channel. Her name is Kaylee. She is 9 years old this week. So tomorrow, we're going to make hamburgers, and she doesn't know this, but she's going to get a hamburger for her birthday. Oh my goodness, it is going to be magnificent, glorious. There will be devouring and slavering. That's such a good girl. Oh, yes. Do you want some more? Goodness gracious, just starving for the attention. I've got to start streaming here. I got to start talking about Japan. Get some head pats. Oh, yes. That's a good girl. She's got these floppy ears. And they stand like at half attention. You can like make them poke up like this, but she... Little derpy thing. What are you doing? What are you doing? How many channel points for you to give me those head scritches? I don't know. I mean, I think it would probably be a funny clip, so I might just do it for free. That would require you to visit, of course. Alright, we're going to switch back away from the puppy cam because she's now deciding that she needs to lick her junk. Hey, stop licking your junk. You go see Brittany now, huh? Oh, yes. There we go. Good girl. That was an extended puppy cam. So you all got a rare treat. She usually doesn't stay around that long. She usually just sort of shows up and then walks away after I don't immediately give her what she wants. Usually what happens is that she's coming back here to try to get me to give her something. Specifically something that Brittany won't give her or like won't like immediately attend to her. Trying right now to reach something that has fallen on the floor, and I'm having limited success. I was trying to use a Gundam sword to get it. There we go. Problem solved. All right. Apologies. Okay, let's talk about Japan, because that's, well, I mean, some people came here because Steve raided me, but some people came here to maybe see how horribly I embarrassed myself tonight, but some people probably came to hear something about history. So for those people, let's talk about Japan. All right, so last time that we talked about Japan, we covered a group of people that were fighting over control, and there were three big clans. There's Minamoto and Fujiwara and the Taira, and we talked about this period of time called the Heian period, which was really, really influential for Japanese culture. And we ended the Heian era with the rise. Well, that's the wrong one. The rise of this guy. This is Minamoto no Yoritomo, who was the founder and the head of the Moritomo clan, and he is going to take over. And when he takes over, we're going to end the Heian era, and we're going to start a new period of history, and this is referred to as the Kamakura period. Now, the reason it is called the Kamakura period is because Minamoto here moves the sort of functioning capital of the country. The emperor is still going to be the titular head of the government, but in reality, Minamoto is going to be the shogun, and he's going to be running the country in a sort of day-to-day affair. And this is the beginning of a particular type of government that gets referred to as the bakufu. This means the tent government. And this referred back to a specific period in Japanese history where there were these great generals that were given a lot of unilateral power, and they were sent up into the northern part of Japan to defeat barbarians that were up in that area. So by calling his government the bakufu, he's sort of attempting to claim this historical justification for being in charge of things. But in reality, he's usurping power from the emperor, right? But he sets up his head of the government at Kamakura, which was a city in his home district, one that was sort of in his territory, because he wanted people coming to see him at his place instead of going to Kyoto and seeing the emperor, because the emperor was not the center of the government anymore. So by literally creating a geographic distance here between Kamakura, where you would have to go to talk to the shogun, and Kyoto, where you could go to talk to the emperor, he is saying, I am different than him. I am the one in charge. He's not in charge anymore. And this is also a period of time that continues the cloistering of the emperors. Emperors were there, and everybody knew they were there, but you couldn't really just go walk into the imperial palace. This was a period of time where the emperor was effectively a house guest in his own palace and was kept there in a lot of luxury and comfort, to be sure, but without the ability to travel freely, because the emperor was no longer in charge of function, right? Have I seen The History of Japan by Bill Wirtz on YouTube? Negative. I showed it to your ex who is Japanese, probably still is Japanese, and she said it was very accurate. Cool. Just in general, I tend to not watch a lot of YouTube, and that's not a judgment on anybody. It's just my thing. I don't really watch a lot of YouTube. Given that this was Japan, are we talking about barbarians or barbarians? We're not talking about the same groups of people that would have attacked Rome, right? So we're not talking about Goths and Vandals and Huns and Avars and all that stuff. We're talking about people that would have lived initially in these northern islands, especially the big island here of Hokkaido, and then the northern part of Honshu. This group of people here weren't originally included in the old school Yamato court, which pretty much dominated southern Japan down here. So when the imperial powers began to expand up into the larger part of the big island of Honshu, they wanted to basically take that land by force if need be, and the people that were living there were called barbarians because they were uncivilized. They were not living in the same splendor and regality of the court. But they weren't the same people groups that would have been attacking Rome. This is also happening a good 600, 700 years after a lot of that stuff that was happening over in Rome. I don't know, is it 600 years? No, probably not 600 years. 500, about 300 years is a little bit more of an accurate statement. I apologize that I overestimated that to begin with. I should have slowed down and done math better. But anyway, we have a bakufu. And what's a bakufu? Well, it's a military government, basically. But Japan wasn't really set up to be run by the military. And this is going to be problematic on many levels. First off, the end of the Heian era saw a lot of clashes between these three really big clans. Again, the Fujiwara, the Taira, and the Minamoto. And the Minamoto just managed to win, but that doesn't mean that the other tribes were gone. Specifically, the Fujiwara had moved up into the northern part of the big island of Honshu and were causing a lot of trouble up there. But also, a lot of the nobility that weren't in these big houses had pledged allegiance to one of the houses at a given period of time, and they weren't necessarily happy when the Minamoto clan won out, right? So you don't necessarily have a leader that everybody wants to follow that's in charge right now. Here's a question. Why is the name Yamato sacred in Japan? So Yamato was the location of the first imperial foundation. So when the first emperors of Japan held court, they would hold court at Yamato. And this is it's down here in the southern part of Japan in these big fields that were rather fertile, that had a lot of ability to support population. And that's where the imperial line really actually started. And the imperial line that is ruling Japan today, so Emperor Naruhito, is still literally the same imperial line that has always been in charge of Japan. So the guy that's the emperor right now can trace his lineage all the way back to the first emperors at Yamato. So that's a very important symbol for the imperial line. And of course, at various periods during the Japanese history, the emperors are stronger or weaker. And especially during the last period of time where the emperors were super duper strong, this is like the late 1800s into the middle 1900s. So after the Meiji restoration, where the imperial line kicked out the Tokugawa shogunate, this is 1868. And of course, the sort of big transitions that happened after World War II when Japan rewrote its constitution. So 45, 46, 47. That period of time, the imperial seat was super duper popular again and very, very powerful. And a lot of the custom that is still held over in modern Japanese history comes from that period. Even though they've changed fairly dramatically on a governmental level, it doesn't necessarily mean that the spirit of the imperial position has necessarily diminished as much as his political power has, if that makes any sense. So there's still a little bit of an imperial mystique or an imperial nostalgia in some parts of Japan. And of course, the fact that this goes all the way back to their original founding back in the 600s is a pretty, 500. Well, it depends on when you think the Yamato court got started. I knew the name was sacred because of the battleship. You never knew why. Yeah. So the battleship Yamato was just a really, really big aircraft carrier, right? So, but yeah, it goes way on back from that. That's a great question, Matt. Also, I don't know if I said hello, Matt, but hey, how's it going? I love Japanese history, by the way. So if you've got other random questions, throw that junk out there because I'll be happy about it. But we've got a Bakufu. This is a tent government. We're going to call back to the ancient times when we were kicking the barbarians out of our territory. We're going to establish a military leadership, but people aren't going to like it. And they're especially not going to like it because one of the things that the Minamoto clan starts doing is redistributing land. And in any sort of feudal system where nobility has sort of hereditary claim to land rights, this is not going to work. But this is a direct response to how successful farming had become during the Heian era. Specifically with these, there were specific types of big farms called shoin, which were basically tax exempt in a lot of ways, but run by either a noble or maybe a temple or a monastery. But the shoin were creating a lot of wealth, and the Minamoto clan was very obviously very aware that they didn't want their enemies to have access to these giant systems of wealth. So they started taking away some of these big farms and productive lands from their enemies and giving it to people that were more on their side. This is a recipe for consternation, as you might accept. But also, there were a lot of people in Japan that just weren't naturally accustomed to listening to people other than the emperor. There were still a lot of clans that were sort of traditional and would have considered the emperor to be not just the head of the religious branch of the government, but the actual government itself. So there were still imperial supporters that didn't want a rule of anybody other than the emperor himself. Hereditary claim to land rights reminds me that, like the British, Crown owns half of the Discworld game. And I'm sorry, I'm gonna stop this and read this again. Hereditary claim to land rights reminds me that, like the British, Crown owns half of the Discworld games or something because somebody died without an heir or something similar. Oh, so yeah, well, there was actually inheritance issues that do actually get fixed rather equitably during the Kamakura period. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. I'll if we get to the reorganization of the courts, and I don't talk about hereditary rights and inheritance, remind me. But I'm pretty sure I can remember that because I think I actually have it noted to mention. But anyway, the inheritance thing is going to be something that's interesting. A lot of the land rights during this period of time had changed from that structure. There had been periods of time in Japan where the imperial clan claimed all of the land, and when you died, it reverted to the emperor, and your legacy had to go ask for it back. That had sort of fallen away during the Heian era, and it was sort of expected that you were going to get your land back. But the Heian era also saw the decline of an imperial position towards a more bureaucratic structure. So nobility holding land over time was kind of a thing that was becoming accepted. Even if the theory was that it all was being done in the name of the emperor. It was sort of just like political hand-wavy stuff. That's how the current King of England made most of his money, claiming unclaimed property. Well, that and, all of that imperial colonization stuff, the stripping wealth from other countries upon taking it over. Didn't regular Japanese folks never hear an emperor's voice until Hirohito announced capitulation? That was a fairly common thing. That gets back to this mystique of the emperor. You weren't supposed to look at the emperor directly. In many cases, you weren't supposed to address the emperor directly if you were speaking. You were supposed to address something like, surely a lord who was interested in making a wise decision would think something like this. And you would sort of announce this in general to the room, and the emperor would be in the room, maybe sitting behind a screen or something. But you wouldn't be like, hey, bud, here's what you need to do. Because you didn't directly address the emperor. That was a no-no. Now, if he directly asked you something and told you to respond to him, sure. But just in general, no, you don't directly address the emperor. That gets back to that sort of sacrosanctity of the imperial position. It's above all of us. And of course, the emperors were seen as descended from the gods and were literally divine in a certain way. So the crown made their money with the whole imperialism thing and then inherited a lot of it. Oh, sure. Oh, but the money he himself made. I got you. Okay. I got you. I apologize for missing the distinction there. I don't really keep up a lot with how the British royal family makes their money. The only thing that I've looked at multiple times with an attempt at trying to keep straight is a particular metric where someone, and I can't remember if it's a tabloid or if it's actually the government of England or the UK itself, keeps up with a running total, and it's something like, how much did the royalty of the UK cost each UK citizen this year? And it's something like £20, I think, or something like that. I can't remember what it is, but, I wish it'd be known to we assembled that all streamers with a sense have VIP their active chatters. Are you saying you want me to VIP you, fuckage? I normally don't even pay attention to that stuff, and honestly, I don't remember specifically how to do that. A streamer would not dare to deign that, right? Is it under rewards? No, it's not under rewards. Is it under community? Yeah, I think so. All right, so there's that. How about... We'll just do this for a few people, because I see a few people around. I've got 40 of these that I can give out. We'll just burn through some of these. All right, so there's a bunch of people. If I missed anybody, let me know. So if you've been here for like 2+ years and you talk and chat all the time, you're probably VIP now. So there we go. I don't even really know what that does other than puts a little pink thing beside your name. Maybe I should make that a point redemption thing, like where you can buy VIP, and just make it like 50,000 points or something. I don't know. I don't know what people do with things. But anyway, there we go. We fixed that problem. I didn't know it was a problem, but we fixed it. I'm always listening. A wise and benevolent streamer is always interested in listening to their followy people, right? So now, what is this? Yeah, there it is. Cost of the crown summary. That's it. How much did it cost last year? I don't know if that's it. I don't have the time to dig through this. We're talking about Japan. What's happening? I was stuck in a commercial about Shane's dog stealing his car. What? Someone just brought up that I haven't VIP'd people in a while, so I just VIP'd a whole bunch of people. So, welcome, VIPs. Where were we talking about stuff? Okay, yeah, so the government is new. People don't always like it. There's a lot of people that are arguing about whether or not we even want to accept this this new government. And in the mix-up of this, the Minamoto clan is actually going to end up losing control of their own government. There's a really weird situation that's happening here. And this is going to start with the rise of a group called the Hojo, or the Hojo clan. So, crud, come on now. I did the wrong button. The Hojo clan is a group that was originally part of the larger Taira organization. So they were not necessarily fans of the Minamoto, nor were they necessarily fans of the Fujiwara. Theoretically, the Taira would have had a bigger grudge against the Minamoto because the Minamoto were the ones that ended up pushing them out of power. What up, Prof? How's it going, man? So the Hojo clan is going to basically usurp the usurpers. And they create this new system where they introduce a new title. This new title is called Shikin. And I almost titled tonight's stream Taste Like Shikin. When I usurped the usurpers. I don't know if I've ever done that on an adventure hat situation. Let me put on the adventure hat because I'll try to think of something where I usurped usurpers. Man, that's tough. I don't know. When have I usurped usurpers? Dude, I don't even know. I don't even know. That's a hard question to apply. Let me look at my pictures and see if anything kind of pops out as, hey, that's when you did that thing. Where would I have usurped usurpers? Oh, that's really tough. Dude, I don't know how to make that work. I really don't know how to make that work. No, not Godara. All right, maybe I can make this stretch. It's not a good stretch. This is a pretty bad stretch, but I'm going to try it anyway to make it try to fit. Is that the correct picture? No. 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 Is that the correct picture? Yes. Okay. Okay, so this is going to take a little bit of discussion, and it's a very, very odd thing. And it doesn't really work, but I'm going to say that it works because this is what we've got. Okay, so in Jordan, let's go here, and we'll go to photos. All right. So in Jordan, this is what Jordan looks like in especially a lot of the parts of the north. It's very rugged, and I chose this spot, this particular shot on purpose because of this. If we look across this giant valley at this particular ridge line that sticks out right here, and we zoom into the top of it, we can see that there are these little weird hole looking things, and there's this thing right here, and there's this thing right here, and you're like, what is that? Well, this is like the closest thing to something Middle Earth that I've ever been to. There's the valley itself, a little bit of a pan around. This place up here is a fortress that's called Sela, and it was built way back in time by a group of people called the Edomites. And all of this stuff is part of this large fortification thing. I probably shouldn't show you those people's pictures. Anyway, when you get up to it, this is what it looks like from the bottom. And you're like, okay, there's no way to get up there. There's no way to get up there. But there is. There's this like secret pathway that you kind of walk up, and it goes through the mountains and around the corners, and it kind of zigzags up these little narrow valleys and crevices. It goes through rocks and stuff like that. But eventually you get to the top of it, and it's this big fortress. It's not Moria Zagdraws. We're going up instead of down. Also, what up, Noel? As far as I'm concerned, I'm usurping the usurpers now. Cool. Well, I wanted to give you your points worth, right? So you could see this pretty cool little passageway here up to the top. But anyway, the specific photos that I'm going to get at. there was this big battle where a bunch of people ended up running up to this particular location, and the bad guys caught them and threw thousands of the Edomites off this cliff and took the fortress of for themselves. And this is actually recorded in the Bible. There's a big war between these people and the Israelites. And I was trying to get to a specific set of pictures here that I'm hopefully getting to soon. Around here somewhere, but there's just too many pictures to flip through. Okay, so here's me usurping the usurpers. So this is the base of the watchtower, and after this was conquered by the bad guys, then there are Babylonians or Assyrians. I think it's Shalmaneser the Third that ended up sacking this fortress and taking it again. Anyway, so here's me on top of the fortress that was taken by other people. So I am taking over their territory. I climbed the rock and got on top of the big rock, and here's me looking out in my majesty, usurping the usurpers. So this rock had been circled out, and you can see the remains of the wall that would have been the base of the tower here. And of course, it was all walled off around here. I eventually sat down and I think waved really goofy like. Yeah. Hello. This is prior to the adventure hat. When I went to Jordan, I did not have the adventure hat with me. But you can see where I dropped my gear here at the base of the tower so that when I had to climb this rock, I wasn't, going to die. I also took liberal use of stacking up some of the stones that would have been part of the wall that had fallen down to make myself a little bit of a ledge to get up to this so that I could climb up to here. So, there you go. As close as I can come quickly to usurping the usurpers. There's only one Shane under the mountain. Exactly. I hope that I don't get reincarnated when I die. There don't need to be 6 Shanes like there were that many Durans, right? Eventually Shane will return, right? Until Duran's crown comes out of the water and Duran walks again, right? Anyway. Back to Japan, because we're not making very much headway and we still got a lot of stuff to talk about Japanese. Yeah, it is kind of like Shades of Masada. And it's really not that far away from Masada. You could probably drive from Sila to Masada in a day, if you could get across the border. It wouldn't take very long to get there. If they turn CERN back on, you never know. It could be 10 Shanes. That's true, right? We just create a parallax and all of the multiverses start showing up, and one of the versions of me makes an interdimensional travel thing. Yeah, exactly. It's a Shane hole. Which everybody is having super fun now picturing, right? How do I have all this stuff memorized? What's up, Schwarzer Kunstler? My brain is weird. I'm a very, very odd person when it comes to being able to hold on to facts and data and stuff like that. It's just the way that it works. It's all up there, and what's crazy is that it's all connected. And if you ask me one thing, I can branch off into all of the different tangents about it and give you dates and times and places and people, and it's weird. It's the way that my brain works. It's a really big blessing. It has helped me immensely in my study. It makes things tons easier. But this is also why I like streaming, because I have all of this, and most of the time all it does is just sit in my head. And I like sharing it with people, right? Because I didn't learn it just for fun of it. I learned it so that I could try to help people understand the past. And that's what I do, or at least that's what I hope I do. That's the reason I teach. I like making people's minds work better. And I like helping people gain more information that they can use to make wiser decisions. Because if we all make better decisions, the world becomes a better place, right? Can I give you a quick fact on Ethiopia or something niche? Yeah, for sure. What period of Ethiopia? Do you want way back when Ethiopia was trading with, like the Iron Age and Bronze Age Egyptians, when, you have like the Kingdom of Punt way down there? Or do you want later on when Ethiopia establishes itself as a kingdom of Abyssinia and starts trading? Or do you want the period of time where Ethiopia was run by Jewish monarchs and fighting with the Yemeni? Something random to flex on your dad. Tigray, the language spoken in the modern Tigray region, is actually a Semitic language, and it goes back to the same linguistic family roots as the modern Hebrew. Still spoken by a lot of people in Ethiopia today. So, there you go. What up, Zippy? How's it going? This is also why Tigray doesn't really get along very well with the modern Ethiopian government, and why they've been trying to break away for the last 2 years, and why a lot of people have unfortunately suffered a lot of ethnic cleansing / genocide type activity up in the northern part of Ethiopia. It's pretty rough. Pretty rough. Capital of Ethiopia is Addis Ababa. I could elaborate a lot on a lot of that. So we all just assume he's some sort of cyborg with several petabytes of storage. Dude, I don't have a gigabyte of storage. A gigabyte of, well, I don't know, maybe. I don't actually know how much brain data takes up space. I know if I were to type out everything that I knew, it probably wouldn't be a gigabyte of text. It might be like a few megabytes of text, maybe. Shane watches Shogun on Disney Plus and does stream on Japan. I don't have Disney Plus, and I thought Shogun was on Netflix. I haven't seen any of the episodes yet. I know that there are 2 episodes out. I'll prefer to wait till they all come out, and then I'll watch them in a run. Let's actually try to get back to Kamakura period, though, right? You'd kill for that brain. It is a blessing. It is. I am incredibly blessed to have the ability to store and recall all of this stuff. It's not all positive. I can also remember most of the conversations that I've ever had, including all of the negative ones where people have said horrible things about me. I also can remember exactly how I felt in those situations, and if I think about it enough, I can literally make myself feel that exact same way again. This also leads to a whole bunch of issues with anxiety and worry, because I know all of this stuff that's happened before, and I can start recognizing patterns about what's happening now, and I can also come up with really, really elaborate, very plausible stories that all end with catastrophe. So it's not all sunshine and daisies. Sometimes it's catastrophizing and not wanting to come out of the bed for 3 days straight, right? I like the Backstreet Boys. There's nothing wrong with that. It makes me a more efficient killing machine. We joke around here somewhat, maybe not jokingly, that if society were ever to collapse and the purge sort of take over, that I would end up a pretty horrible warlord of the apocalypse. And I don't know if that's necessarily a joke. I wonder if the new version of the Shogun will be better than the old. I don't actually know what period of time Shogun takes place. I don't know if it's even maybe this period. It could be the Kamakura period. I'm not certain when the show takes place. So yes, let's go back to 1200s Japan. And we'll talk about the Hojo clan, who just usurped power from the Minamoto clan. Oh, it's Tokugawa. Okay, cool. That sort of figured it would be Tokugawa. That's where everybody runs. There were shoguns before that, though, like the Hojo clan, who were not shoguns, they were shikin. And so what we have here, when the Hojo clan takes over, we have an emperor who is a puppet and doesn't really have a lot of power. And on top of the emperor, we have the shogun, But at this point, the shogun has become a puppet. So there's still a Moritomo puppet shogun, but the Hojo clan, now with a new position called Shiken, is over both of those. So we have a puppet controlling a puppet. Controlling a puppet. Which is just like puppets all the way down, I guess, right? We're getting into Lies of P, which is Prof's least favorite game from last year. So it's a weird political situation. And when this happens, we have a bit of a pushback. And the emperor at the time is this guy named Go-Toba. Go-Toba looks like this. This is the Emperor Go-Toba. He decides that when the Minamoto clan loses control of the shogun to the Hojo clan, that it's time to rebel. So Go-Toba rallies a lot of the people that would support the imperial clan, and he starts this rebellion, and it does not go very well at all. It only lasts about 1 year. This was in 1221. It goes pretty bad. And when Go-Toba's imperial rebellion is completed, it's pretty clear that the military regime is not going to go away. The Hojo clan immediately starts passing some really, really big reforms. And probably the biggest one is the Goseibai Shikimoku, which I'm sure everybody immediately remembers and knows exactly what I'm talking about. The Goseibai Shikimoku. This is a really, really big government overhaul. And it's passed through the Hojo clan and promulgated out to the entire country. This basically reforms the entire legal and judicial system of Japan to make it a military-run group. So it's going to take power away from existing judicial bodies and legislative powers and local level government, and it's going to transfer those powers to military leaders. And we actually have this, which is really fascinating. This is a copy of the Goseibai Shikimoku. This particular copy is from the 1600s, so it's not authentic to the actual time, but it is very, very old. But the reason I felt like it was still okay to show this is to sort of impress how important this particular set of laws is. When the Goseibai Shikimoku gets put into effect, there are parts of it that will be in effect for more than 600 years. Because the shogunate, of course, is going to maintain the moderate control over the country all the way up through the 1800s. And part of this big legal overhaul that's in books like this get copied over and over and over and over again because they become the law. And this is just the way that things operate now. We're moving pointedly away. We're starting something completely new. We are reorienting the way that the power flows in the country, and you're just going to have to deal with it. This doesn't necessarily go over very well. This new military rule is very strict. It's designed at being somewhat punitive to the groups that were part of the rebellion. It's a bit too expected, though, right? Like, if you rebel against me, I'm not going to just be like, oh, guys, let's hug it out. No, of course not. I'm going to strip you of all your power. I'm going to strip you of all your land. I'm going to publicly humiliate you. I'm going to cast your family's clan name into anathema. I'm going to beat the crap out of you in social settings, both physically and socially. I'm going to punish you. And in a certain way, the Goseibai Shikimoku is designed to give the Hojo clan the power that they need to do the work that they want to do. And this is going to be big, and yeah, the Warlord is coming out, right? Refresh my memory, the Kamakura period had the Taira and the Minamoto clans killing each other. That was the end of the Heian period, Noel. In the late 1100s, there was a three-way battle for control. So the Fujiwara clan had control for most of the Heian era. And then at the end, the Minamoto clan gained some power and started trying to one-up them. And then the Taira clan came in as an aid for the Minamoto against the Fujiwara. And then the Taira ended up ratting out the Minamoto and taking over for a while at the very end of the Heian era. And then the Minamoto clan, like triple, double backstab, half axle, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, ended up stabbing the Taira clan in the back and taking over completely. So by the time we get to the Kamakura era, the Minamoto clan had ascendancy, and they held that for about the span of one person's lifetime. And then the Hojo clan showed up and took that power from them. But theoretically, the Kamakura period is still being run by the Minamoto clan, but they're being controlled as puppets by the Hojo. We're still we're in the 1200s right now. The Goseibai Shikimoku comes out in I think it's 1225, when they're about to start doing the reorganization of the government bodies as well. Because and I guess we can go ahead and talk about this. One of the things that they do is overhaul the Council of State and make this new thing called the Hyojishu. I guess I could type that as well. I'm in the wrong screen here. Got to go here. All right. So there's a new government organ. I know we can all kind of giggle at the use of the word organ here. Hyojishu. This is the new Council of State. This gets set up by the Hojo clan specifically to concentrate power into this new position of Shiken. And it's designed at making sure that the existing military leaders are all going to be lined up under the Shiken, but it's also going to assist them with using their military power in non-military ways. So this is how they justify letting military people oversee courts. This is how they justify letting military leaders make local laws in cities and towns. This is how they solve all of the estate claims, because one of the things that was happening when they were taking land from people and giving it to other people, that was a position that had only ever been allowed under the imperial seat, right? Because the emperor controlled where the land was distributed. This is going to give the power of land to the Hyojoshu, which is then going to be run by the Shiken, which basically says the Hojo get to decide where the land goes, right? So you've got to make some sort of hand waving go on so that there's an accepted procedure for you to go appeal things. This is also, and I mentioned I would come back to inheritance. One of the things that they do here that actually ends up being really forward thinking is that they allow women to inherit. If you didn't have a male relative when your husband died, you could inherit property and business under the new military system. And this was done a little bit because it ends up letting some of the big families survive, especially some of the families that were allied with the Hojo. It keeps them from having to marry into another family and dilute their wealth. But it also does things like allow for a lesser amount of legality claims, because inevitably what happens in a lot of these smaller situations in any given city, there's going to be 15 or 20 disputes between brothers about who gets to inherit their sister's wealth, right? Is it going to be the brother by birth, or is it going to be the brother-in-law? Or is it going to be an uncle? And this was sort of gumming up a lot of the works of the judicial system. And even though the military leadership wants to be in charge of the judicial system, they don't really want all the petty stuff. They just want the big things. They want to be in control of the big decisions that get made. So if we just say, look, women can inherit property, this clears a lot of the backlog out of especially smaller judicial systems. I know this is super sexy when it comes to history, by the way. Let's talk about inheritance rights in history. 1200s Japan. Yeah, let's talk about clearing the judicial backlog. And I love this stuff. This is sort of my world. Anyway, we can just kind of move on here. There is a lot of religious change, and for the sake of nobody chatting right now and feeling like it's necessarily super duper interested in this period of time, let's just say that one of the things that's happening during this period is a reorganization of religious power. A lot of the older sects of Buddhism in Japan are going to lose some of the mystique that they had, like Shingon, which had been very, very powerful for a very long time, is going to lose out to some of these newer things like Amida, which is Pure Land Buddhism. You're going to see the government get directly involved with reorganizing how some of these big religiously run farms are going to operate. In many cases, the government's going to directly call out monks and priests and drive some of these people out of Japan or kill them, right? If you're not lining up with the new government structure, we're going to get rid of you. You find it interesting just to have no comments. That's fair. That's fair. Samurai were using Tachi at this time, which is interesting because sword makers were starting to experiment with different blade types. Yeah, not just blade types. We can just say that in general. One of the things that's happening when the military becomes more prevalent, there's a bigger use and a bigger need for things like military equipment. And this creates a bit of a run on the market for commodities. And things like metal, which is not necessarily super prevalent in Japan anyway, is going to go up a bit to a premium for a little while. It's going to be a little bit harder for people to find good stuff. So people are starting to question things like, what should be the average length of a sword? If we make the sword a little bit shorter and make the blade a little bit less curved, we can spend less metal on it. And if we can save a little bit of metal on each blade, we can make this many more blades. And you also see different types of like blade thicknesses, both, if this is the cutting edge here, both thickness this way, but also width this way. And you also see them experiment with the angles of the curves. Are we doing wider curves or shorter curves or even a straight blade? And this is eventually getting to the sort of standardized daisho that you see pretty quickly become prevalent in the Tokugawa period, where you have the larger, more curved katana with the shorter, less curved wakizashi. So this is kind of my world. It's fascinating. I know that's fair. That's fair. I could get way deep in the woods here. This is one of the ones where I need the outline to keep myself on track instead of keeping myself aware. Like, I need to talk about this. This is the important stuff because I can rabbit chase down some deep rabbit holes in this world. Anyway, religious changes, political changes, governmental changes, things are going on. To top this off, stuff gets kind of bad natural. There are some really big natural disasters that hit Japan during this time period. Some big storms that kill a lot of crops. There's some flooding. There are really big earthquakes. And what ends up happening as a result of this is a lot of people, especially religious people, are going to see these horrible natural disasters, especially the ones that start creating problems in the food supply, as punishment from the gods, right? These Hojo have come in, they have reorganized the system, they're punishing people, they're targeting us good religious people, they're getting rid of the imperial power, they're doing all of this usurpation of political order and judicial order, and the kami are speaking. They're punishing us for their hubris. And this actually catches on quite a bit. Not everybody is a big fan of the Hojo clan. The natural disaster stuff starts ending up causing a lot of consternation. Kami, yes, Kami, meaning gods or spirits. It's a bit hard to translate that directly into gods. The kami were the deities. Well, you can't even necessarily say that they're deities because not all of them are deities. Now I'm going to tangent down a Japanese Shinto rabbit hole. Shinto, by the way, is still going pretty strong at this point, but it's being blended a lot with Buddhism. I wonder what Juan Sanchez Villalobos Ramirez is doing in this era. Probably not making really horrible movies with a Scottish accent, right? When you showed up to class and one of your senpai saw your swords, one of your swords was Shobazakuri. With a full 1-inch Zori, he asked if he could make a cut with it. Nice. He couldn't understand why my sword made a thick takikaze, and why I was sweating. He wasn't expecting to be so heavy. Yeah. So, lots of good Japanese terms. Noel, do you... have you ever lived in Japan, or do you just have are you in a big city where you have people that are of Japanese heritage? Because that's a lot of terms that I would not have expected to show up in chat without somebody that had a whole bunch of background. Mutual martial artist. Okay, there we go. Multi-martial artist. Okay. Well, there you go. You doing Kenpo? Or are you doing Aikido? And you took Japanese. Oh. Well, that's pretty friggin' cool. I would love to take Japanese class. Mac in a lab coat, mod in the channel, is waiting sort of with bated breath to teach me Japanese. And I think we might be getting close to the time where it's going to be time for me to learn. I started a few years ago trying to learn hiragana, and my dyslexia did not agree with that very much. Musoji Kiten, Ancient Ryujatsu, American Kenpo, and Ninpo. Wow, that's a lot. I mean, especially the Kenpo would get a lot of that weapon stuff. I've never done any Japanese martial arts, but that's cool stuff, man. That's really cool stuff. Maybe when I start learning Japanese, I'll hit you up. Teaching black belts as purple belt. Nice. Interesting. Japanese culture, language, and travel. Tabemasho. Learn Japan from anime to Zen. That's pretty fun. That's pretty cool. If I had unlimited time, I'd be buying that. I don't have unlimited time. That's the problem. Yajutsu is the art of drawing, cutting, and resheeting. Resheathing. Yeah. I gotcha. Because that's supposed to be an H. I gotcha. Yeah. I've read a lot of the books, right? I've read the Goren Show and oh crap! No, I can't remember the other one. The other big Japanese model. So the Goren Show is written by Miyamoto Musashi. And there's another big one, and I've read the whole thing, and oh my gosh, now I'm losing my brain. I'm trying to think of too many things at once. Hagakure, yes, thank you. I knew it started with an H. That one's better than the Goren Show for me, but it's also more descriptive. Miyamoto Musashi, obviously not a man of many words. What's up, Noger? Good to see you. All right, let's try to make some progress here. We've got a lot of stuff to cover, and we're not even close to being done. I don't necessarily need to be on stream for another hour. It might happen, though. We'll see. Okay, lots of natural disasters. Things are going bad. We can save some time right there. Okay, next problem. that's going to face our Kamakura leadership. This guy. We had a streamer for a while that was using Japanese video games to teach Japanese language, spoken and written. Interesting. Sad that they went inactive. Yeah. This is Kublai Khan, who, of course, is going to take over China and establish the... Oh, Tuna, hey, you came in earlier and I forgot to say hey, Tuna. Hey, Tuna, what's up, man? Dude, Tuna, Kyle sent me a picture of you guys at dinner. I was so happy that you and Kyle hung out, man. Kyle's such a great person, and you're such a great person. Dude, the streams of my life crossing with you guys being friends gave me like the warm fuzzies for like a whole afternoon. That guy used Chinese slaves to attack Japan twice, right? Yeah. So Kublai Khan takes over the Yuan dynasty, or establishes the Yuan dynasty in China after taking over. And he decides that Japan really needs to be subservient to him. And he convinces the Goryeo dynasty in Korea to sort of bend the knee. So he's like, okay, well, I got Korea on my side. I'm just going to get Japan on my side. So he starts sending them letters. And it's these really threatening letters that's like, hey, I'm going to get you if you don't do what I tell you to do. And what's really crazy here is we actually do have one of those letters. This is an actual copy of the actual letter from 1266, or actual picture rather, where Kublai Khan sort of gets up in the Japanese face and was like, look, I'm the emperor of everything, and you all need to swear loyalty to me. And of course the Japanese response to this is a big raging middle finger, and this is not going to make Kublai Khan very happy. So he lets it sit for a little while just under the guise of hopeful negotiation. But by the time we get to 1271, the Mongols aren't pleased. And they basically send one last letter that's like, look, we're for real. You guys are going to have to like do what we tell you to do. And Japan once again tells them like, no, we're really not. And just a couple of years later, in 1274, we get this, where... this, by the way, is a painting of Japanese origin that shows the invasion of the Mongols. This is in 1274. This is a very, very famous painting. To a certain degree, if you've played the game Ghost of Tsushima, they kind of recreated this painting in the opening scene of Ghost of Tsushima, with the guy on the black horse sort of charging the Mongol army and getting shot to pieces. One of the things that's important to point out here, this is a blast. So this is an explosion from gunpowder, because one of the things that the Mongolians had with them was gunpowder, which is something that the Japanese had not seen before, right? It's a mess. It doesn't go over very well. The island of Tsushima and the island of Iki both get taken in 1274, and there is a big Mongol navy that's moving up to this place called Hakata Bay, and they offload their ships, and they're about to start this big battle, and something magical happens. According to the story. The wind of the Kami shows up and blows all of the Mongol boats out to sea and crashes them and destroys their fleet. And this is going to save Japan the day. And this wind of the gods is called kamikaze, where we get the word kamikaze. Yeah, there we go. Swordmakers developed the Doltanuki to combat Mongols on horseback. In pop culture, Ogami Ito uses one to exact his revenge against the Yagyu. That is about to happen. So this first Mongol invasion in 1274 gets defeated, but it's a tough thing here, because had this event not happened, and to be clear here, we're not even really sure if it actually happened. This is attributed to the events historically, but we don't really know if there was this big wind that knocked all this stuff out. It could have just been a thing where they crashed or something. Maybe they ran ashore. We don't really know exactly what happened, but we do know what happened as an effect of that. So the Mongol invasion of 1274 ends with the Mongols being defeated, but the Hojo clan and the Bakufu in general, the government that's being run by the military, takes this as a big old sign. So what do we do when this happens? Well, we start militarizing everything. They start building seawalls, these really big walls, and I'm realizing now that I should have pulled up pictures of the seawalls that still exist. They start doing things like engineering the shallow waters around the bay where the Mongols last, tried to get out, and in several other shallow areas where they would outload. They bury these really big, super sharp, pokey sticks that are designed to either poke holes in the bottom of Mongol ships or poke holes in the feet of Mongols as they're walking through trying to get to the mainland of Japan. They develop new weaponry. They develop new types of armor. They really ramp up training and recruiting of soldiers, and they do things like form regional militias that are going to be able to be called up with quick notice in case the Mongols show back up. And a lot of people got really freaked out when the Mongols invaded in 1274. No better justification for your military authority than barbarians at the gates. Exactly right, Frank. Exactly right. The bad guys are real now, and you need us now. And people were like, okay, we got it. We need you. Do your thing. And this is actually how the Bakufu is going to get rid of a lot of the naysayers. This is also going to foster a lot of isolationism and anti-Japanese, like xenophobia. So if you're not from Japan and you're not with Japan, you're the bad guy. And this is an idea that gets fostered during this period of time to unify the Japanese people against outside invasion. This is actually going to have a bit of a negative effect a couple hundred years later when we end up with the full-out isolation of Japan during most of the Tokugawa era. But that ideology of outside bad really does get a start during this period of time, because prior to this, in the earlier part of the Kamakura period, international trade was actually going really well, both with China and with Korea and with islands south, like Philippines and stuff like that. There was a lot of international trade going on. That's going to shrink pretty substantially during this period of time, and we're going to start focusing on, making Japan safe. And in 1281, there is reason for, again, consternation, because the Mongols come back up, and this time they're bringing with them a much larger army. I'm Spartacus. Sci-fi. What's going on, my friend? I saw your post the other day about being like 2 years on with a kidney donation, and that still blows my mind, man. That was such a homie move. It's cool to know that I know people that are that down with their homies. But how's it going? How's things in Thailand? I hope it's going well over in your world. I was actually just thinking about Thailand the other day. One of my father-in-law's friends is traveling over there, and I was like, I wonder if he'd run into Sci-Fi Taoist. I doubt that. Like, there would be a random moment, right, where the paths would cross. But anyway, but welcome in. Thank you so much for the subscription. We're talking about Kamakura, Japan. We're specifically talking about Mongol invasions of Kamakura, Japan. And we're on the second invasion, which is the really, really big one of 1281, where, according to the history books, Kublai Khan puts together an army of 140,000 people, which is absolutely enormous. We don't really know if it was that big or not. I don't think it probably was. It was pretty big, though. It included a whole bunch of people, as Noel mentioned earlier, like a whole bunch of Chinese people that had been put in effective slavery things, captives of other wars and stuff like that. basically, if you were expendable, you're going to get put on this ship and you're going to get sent over to Japan. And there's actually quite a bit of ship fighting during this period. Here's another one of these big paintings where we see the Japanese who had decided that one of the ways to fight the Mongolian ships would be to make ships of their own and load them down with samurai and sail the samurai out to the Mongol ships and fight on the deck. So, what we see over here are these smaller boats that are much more maneuverable, full of samurai, and they're boarding the Mongol ships and killing them all because the Mongols had strength in numbers, but the Japanese were going to be much better one-on-one fighters. The samurai class had a lot of training and a lot of armor and, of course, excellent weaponry, and were going to be more than a match one-on-one. But if, of course, the Mongol fleet unloaded its groups on land, that was going to give them size advantage and positional advantage. So you want to catch them while they're out on the ships. Yeah, Junk, we'll get to that in just a second, because we're about to start talking a little bit about cultural shifts. But the second invasion goes much the same as the first invasion. They take a couple of islands, including Tsushima and Iki again. They being the Mongols, they make more headway towards the mainland, but once again, there is another divine wind, another wind of the gods that comes by and wrecks all their ships and forces them into retreat. So they don't win again. But there are big outcomes, and one of them is the one that we already mentioned here, the strengthening of the military regime. When there is a big, bad, scary external threat that everybody can see that can show up and take your land, then can show up and kill you, this is a reason to trust the military. But there is a sort of an underlying degradation of the system, most notably with things like food production. When you're in a military, you got to stockpile food, you got to have a lot of food sitting around, but that's going to create food shortages. Those food shortages are going to be exacerbating the existing food issues, because remember all these big natural disasters that we have been having in Japan that have affected the food supply. So when the war shows up and we go down to like wartime rationing, the food wasn't plentiful to begin with. And the food issue is going to become really, really big. And another sort of underlying, we don't talk about it, but it's their kind of problem, is that during the military operations, the Hojo clan leadership had effectively decided to run things by themselves. They weren't even pretending anymore to take the stuff to the Council of State, the Hyojoshu. They weren't even really acknowledging them, and they were the ones that built the council in the first place. So they basically just decide we can do whatever we want to, and we really don't have to ask permission. We don't have to even go through the token, process of that we said we should go through with our big legal code. We'll just make it happen, right? You're making a cardboard ship for your cat. Excellent. I will expect pictures of this in the Discord. Kublai Khan, scary military leader, bad decision maker. Sure, I'll give you that. He was driven a lot by pride, but to be fair, if you're Genghis Khan's, grandson, and you can't get all of the other great Khans to swear undying allegiance to you, and they're doing really, really cool stuff like taking over Europe, and you can't even take over Japan, it kind of makes you a bit jealous, and it makes you a bit upset because you want to be the great Khan, right? And it was pretty clear that he wasn't the great Khan. He wasn't Genghis, and every time he lost, it made it a little bit more evident, and it got under his skin a little bit further, right? He was amidst a bunch of infighting, for sure. For sure. There's a lot of stuff going on. Can you not? Okay, so Yeah. On political fronts and on historical lines, I think that's probably where we'll leave it. But we do need to talk a little bit about like what's going on overall, because there are cultural shifts and things happening here, and I don't want to just talk about the political stuff and the military stuff. What's happening to the average person or the average life situation in Japan during the Kamakura period? Well, the big thing is the population is increasing. And the population is increasing for a few reasons. Number one, the early part of the Kamakura period was actually very peaceful. And it had been more peaceful than the previous decades by a long shot. So when things are more peaceful, people just have more kids. Also, when there's not as much war, people aren't dying. But the Heian period had brought a lot of advances, especially in the field of farming. That was a really bad pun. That was completely unintended. In the area of farming, there were a lot of new farming techniques, specifically with the way that they were rotating crops and the way that they were fertilizing fields, and that was increasing plant yields rather substantially. They were also using new tools, specifically iron tools that had been developed a lot during the Heian period, that were expediting the process, which means that more land could be worked with fewer people, which again is going to result in more food production. But that should contrast pretty strongly with the fact that they were still having food issues, right? We're making more food, we're being more efficient at farming, and we're still having food issues. And this is, again, the mark of the population growth and the problems that came from the wars. The population was so big that the amount of general surplus was smaller, and population and food supply are always going to be in contention with each other. The closer your population gets to the maximum limits of your food supply, the tougher it is when it comes to shortages. And that's about where Japan was when the Mongol invasions happened. And the population did not decrease at the same rate that the food supply decrease happened. So we end up with this negative surplus of people that can't eat. And that's going to cause consternation. Lots of problems that come out of that. Daddy issues ended more empires than probably anything else. Ricardo Montalban, the greatest Khan. Oh, man. I think John Wayne is the greatest Khan, right? If we're just going to throw some horrible example out there. Peaceful, not for long. Yeah. We're not actually going to get into the Muromachi, and we're not even going to get into the rise of the Ashikaga or the overthrow of the Hojo. I figured we should at least end this one on a happy, because the next one for Japan is going to be rough. Artistic. There is a lot of... Well, I mean, Oda is not until the 1500s, so we've got 250 years of murder before we get to Oda Nobunaga, who, if we're being really honest, is just more murder. How did Nobunaga create peace? He killed everyone, including himself, but that was a bit of a joke. Artistically speaking, the Kamakura period is going to see a shift of art styles. And in the previous Heian era of art, things had been sort of ethereal. There had been a lot of these sort of negative space paintings where I could draw a line and add a little bit of shading into it, and you would know that this is a mountain range. There was a lot of kind of impressionist use of form and shape. By the time we get to the Kamakura period, the focus on this sort of military aspect of life is going to start bringing a new level of realism into Japanese art. And this particular picture is a great example of it. This particular painting is from a series of historical stories, and the title of it is Night Attack on the Sanjo Palace. And this is just a great example of Kamakura period art, because you get realism and you get actual fire, right? Instead of just the impression of fire. And if we zoom in to the battle down here, we actually start seeing things like people fighting one-on-one, and we see these instances of people getting stabbed and shot, and we see people's heads getting cut off, and we see disembodied and disemboweled bodies. The horses are still a little bit chunky, right? We're still a little bit of a chunky horse kind of thing here, right? Can we get some chunky horses in the chat? Right? But what we see here is artistic realism. And we've got people over here, and we can see the expressions on their face. We can see that they're worried and they're concerned. But this is indicative of this artistic shift that happens during this period. People are going to start painting things more realistically. And we see people's heads getting cut off. Bam, Subaru commercial. Sanjo. Sanjo Palace, exactly. That's correct, Matt. Sorry, not Matt, Junk Collector, right? They started developing no plays around this time too. I think that's a little bit later, but I honestly could not say 100% for sure. I'll defer to Noel here. But they do start doing sculpture that looks like actual people. This is a really bizarre looking sculpture. This is a Gjork. That's a great name. Dun 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 dun. Gjork. Thank you so much for the follow. Welcome to the adventure, my friend. Hope you're having a good one. Please feel free to participate at whatever level you feel comfortable. But what we see here is a sculpture of a very famous Buddhist monk named Chongen. And we're seeing the way that this guy really looked, right? We're not seeing sort of the rounded expression. We're not seeing the fanciful thing. We're not seeing the, kind of stylistic choices that had been previous. We're seeing realism. This guy really looked that way, right? Night Attack is going to be a widescreen background. Heck yeah, man. You can see a lot more of it. The entire series of paintings follows the entire story. That particular painting that I just shared is just one scene out of it. So this is Chongen, the monk. No plays were 1400s, so maybe. So I thought they were a little bit later. So I'm ending basically end of the 1200s. Was this bronze cast? No, I think this is carved out of wood. A lot of the statues at this time were carved out of wood and then painted to look realistic. But I'm glad that you mentioned casting, because they also do start doing a lot of that, like this guy. This is a very, very famous statue of the Buddha out of bronze. This is referred to as the Kamakura Daibutsu. It's huge, right? It's like, I'm so bad at math. It's like 12 meters tall, and 2 meters is like 6 feet. So it's like 40 feet tall almost. It's friggin' big. So you do see some big cast metal sculpture as well. That's in the north. So I think this is at Kamakura. Kamakura itself, like at the what would have been the palace of the Shiken, or the palace of the Shogun. I know that it's called the Kamakura Daibutsu. There's a big one in the Hokkaido area. It becomes a pretty common theme artistically to build these just enormous Buddhas like this. How many shanes tall is this sculpture? It's about 6 shanes. If we're using me as a unit of measure, it's about 6 shanes tall. That's a pretty tall statue. So we see this change in art, and we get a little bit more shift towards realism. Another thing that's happening, just in general, is a move towards urbanization. And the population increases aren't just going to be in rural areas. You're going to see the populations of cities and towns increase. And part of this is because of a new emphasis on things like skilled craftsmen's guilds. The earliest of the guilds is going to start around this time period during the Kamakura, and it's not really going to work like the apprenticeship, journeyman's, master stuff guilds that happen over in Europe. It's going to be more along the lines of it's almost more like a union than it is a guild. The earliest of the guilds in Japan are going to be people that are of similar skill that want to work together in order to try to get certain jobs or certain contracts or certain commissions, right? So if you wanted to get one of these big contracts from the Kamakura government to make armor, right? You get a whole bunch of people that make armor and you form your little guild and you make sure that everybody's good because you want to show like, here's a piece of armor that our guild would make. So you can't have crappy people that are crappy workers in your guild. And because of that, it does the same sort of social function of making sure that you get quality goods out of your money. But it's not exactly the same function the way that a guild would work over in Europe. Chris Broad is a great channel to watch on YouTube for anyone interested in traveling around Japan. Cool. That is a lot of Shane. What's up, Snowlock? How's it going? How's things? That's not nearly enough, Shane. Japanese art history. Yeah. So Snowlock was taking a class on Japanese art history. He's like, hey, man, have you ever done anything on Japanese history? And I'm like, yeah. So I sent Snowlock, I think, like maybe 7 or 8 VODs. And just kind of blew him up on Discord. But how's it going, Snowlock? What's up? Shane and the statue are both 0. Lots of light years tall. Exactly, Frank. We're all very small in the span of things, right? I've got a ship that can make the Kessel run in only 14 parsecs, right? So, because we all know that a parsec is a measure of time and not a measure of space, right? The span of Shane, yeah, right. I'm not the Millennium Falcon. I'd said that on purpose. I can't be as fast as the Millennium Falcon. It's the fastest one in the universe. Space-time, it's all related, right? You've been doing great. It was thanks to me that I was able to pass that class with flying colors. Well, I'm glad. That's excellent. We're being revisited by the puppy. What are you doing, puppy? How you doing? I just heard you... This aluminum kestrel. That's great. I'll take aluminum kestrel. That maybe should be an emote. I don't know. I don't even know what that would look like. Anyway, urbanization. Millennial Falcon. I'm not a millennial. I am very firmly Generation X. If maybe not by year of birth, definitely by disposition. So we get guilds. We also get more industry in general. People want more goods because as the population is growing, there's a larger demand for goods, which means that there has to be more stuff to produce goods, which is going to create jobs for people. And production facilities are usually going to be associated with cities as opposed to rural production. So you're going to start seeing more people move into the cities. So Kamakura period gets us a little bit more urbanized, significantly higher population, shifts in art and culture, religious reorganization. We get some new versions of Buddhism hanging around. And it's a pretty interesting period of time. Unfortunately, it doesn't last very much longer. It's got about 33 more years, right? You're technically a millennial, but you're more Gen X. You're on the cusp. I feel you. The advancement of the way they build things started to change. Yeah. It's like they're... No. I get what you're saying. The shift that happens during the Kamakura period is going to set up all of the subsequent periods, especially with things like production of items and goods and distribution of items and goods. The Kamakura period gets mostly looked at on the reorganization that happened around military and politics, but a lot of the day-to-day operation of Japan is going to change during this period of time, and that is going to be the foundation of a lot of additional future sort of standards, right? When we talk about how did they do things in the Tokugawa era on a day-to-day basis, a lot of those things are based on ways that they developed during the Tokugawa period. Because there's not necessarily going to be a lot of opportunity for advance in the next couple hundred years, because Japan is going to be at each other's throat, killing themselves for this giant civil war that lasts 250 years. So there's a lot of warfare tactic advancing, but not necessarily a whole bunch of daily social life things. The population is going to drop pretty bad. There's going to be big famines. It's the Muromachi period is rough for Japan, but that's for next time. All right, I'm done with what I wanted to say, and I managed to get that in fairly quickly, despite a lot of really good and very valid and very pleasing tangents. But I have said what I want to say. So if there are any additional questions about this or point redemptions like what's in the news, I'd be happy to talk. You got anything in particular, Viper? As always, my choice. I could talk about a puppy who wants me to scratch her tummy. What are you doing? You should go see Brittany. You can hang out with Brittany. Do you want to come up here? Come over here. Come over here. You gotta come over here. All right. We'll just do it like this. Come up and see me. Come here. Come on. Come on. Oh, yes. Here's the puppy again. Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness. Did you just want to give me some sugars? Oh, puppy sugars. That's a good girl. Yes. You've been on stream twice now. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. There you go. Is that what you wanted? Okay, I acknowledge that the puppy is in existence. My wife and I joke that the puppy believes in a particular philosophy called pupsistentialism, and that basically states that if no one is looking at, touching, or talking to, or thinking about the puppy doesn't exist. So she constantly needs people to look at her and touch her and think about her and look and you know, be involved with her, because she doesn't want to cease existing. So this is pupsistentialism, if you're interested. All right. What's in the news? Well, there's a lot of stuff in the news, and I don't even know what I want to say. Let me just pull the news up, and I'll scroll. I don't even know what I would want to talk about. There's too much stuff going on. That's the issue. I mean, I feel like I could always talk about Ukraine. And we haven't actually talked about Ukraine in a while, so I guess it might be worth giving a brief overview of sort of what's going on with Ukraine. Because it is getting a lot of headlines lately. The Ukrainians have become rather adept at shooting down Russian warplanes, and they've shot down a lot of Russian warplanes in the last few days. That is making Russia look really bad. At the same time, Russia is taking ground, like literally taking ground through still just basically attrition. Ukraine is debating whether or not they're going to lower the age of conscription, but Zelensky decided that he didn't want to do that unilaterally. He asked for the Ukrainian parliament to pass a resolution to lower the conscription age, and the parliament is sort of split on whether or not they want to do that. France has actually mentioned sending ground troops, non-combatant troops. So basically, these would be people like they would be sent over to train Ukrainian soldiers. They would be French military personnel, but they wouldn't be combat troops. They would be support personnel, military trainers, intelligence officers, medical specialists, and things like that to help Ukraine out. Macron sort of floated that as a maybe, and then doubled down on it today. Slovakia has also mentioned sending ground troops. The United States, of course, is the biggest supplier of foreign aid to the Ukrainian people right now, and our Congress is so jacked up that we can't even pass a bill to fund our own government, much less to help somebody else's government. So the Ukrainian situation is still a very tense one. Russia is doing exactly what everybody expected it to do right now, which is sort of grind them down. Yes, no, like we actually talked about that on Tuesday, how Sweden finally got into to NATO, and specifically talked about the leadership of the Hungarian government, Viktor Orban, who was sort of the last one that was being a jerk about Sweden. Pupsistentialism sounds true for all of us. Do I exist if I never communicate with anyone else? There we go. Yeah, if nobody hears you bark, do you make a sound? There we go. Right. Wind turbines in Rhode Island are bleaching dolphins in Wales. I didn't see that. I did see that there was a program that was being funded to build really big power lines, high voltage power lines from Kansas, because there's a big push for wind power in Kansas, and the high voltage power lines were designed to redistribute that electricity to people east of the Mississippi. So there's going to be a big project to build those. You just now had a thought: are the secondary pun titles a reference to Rocky and Bullwinkle? No, this is Wake Me Up Before You Go Go. It's Wham, right? Wake me up before you go go. That one. Dean Phillips, one of the running presidents, the only other notable role was being the chairman of the Talenti Gelato. What? One of the people running for president's only other notable role was being the chairman of Talenti Gelato. Talenti Gelato is pretty great, though. It's pretty good. Russia has lost a few AWACS. Yeah, Russia is losing hardware pretty fast. But of course, they have literal thousands of things mothballed. They're still rolling out tanks from the 60s and 70s and using them. They're losing tanks at a rate of about 100 to every one that they can make. So the attrition is working on the Russian cavalry units pretty fast. For every one tank that they can make, they've lost 100 at the current rate that they're losing them now. Macron also says that NATO member states are openly discussing a possible Russian attack on their territory. Yeah, okay, so Macron talks too much. Macron very desperately wants everybody to look at him the same way that the rest of the world looked at Angela Merkel in Germany. Macron says way too much and then has no ability to back it up. Macron doesn't have as much support in his own country as he even thinks that he does. He's not a popular politician across the board in France. The French people don't line up behind him. And the French government, even people in his own political party, don't always like everything that he says. He just likes to talk. He likes the limelight. He likes being in the middle of things. He wants to be this grand unifier of Europe. And he wants everybody to look at him and remember him. And he's not going to be remembered well. Okay, so here's an opinion hat. Opinion hat has been summoned. We will put on the opinion hat. This is what I wear when I get to be opinionated. I mean, I've been sort of opinionated, but I don't know if I'm necessarily being fully opinionated. I think I'm being factual with most of this. I'm way behind in chat, by the way. So here's the opinion hat. The question is, would now be a good time to invade Russia? No, it's never a good time to invade Russia. You don't ever invade Russia. One does not simply walk into Russia. You don't invade Russia by land. If you're going to invade Russia, you shouldn't. It just doesn't work. It's too big. It's too broad. The supply lines that you have to run are too long. you just don't invade Russia. Russia right now is still strong enough to take millions of people to invade it. Like, if we wanted to invade Russia right now, we would have to mobilize the entire United States military, all of the National Guard, and start a draft again. We don't have the manpower right now to invade Russia in a way to functionally hold Russian territory. If we wanted to, if we wanted to fix something with Russia, if we wanted to change the way that Russia was working, the best thing that we could do would be to Hellfire missile Vladimir Putin and the leadership of the Kremlin. And we just need to make sure that we get Dmitry Medvedev in that and all of the top military brass. So Hellfire missile, if it's a group of them. If they're moving individually, I've become a fairly... Okay, so how do I say this the right way? I do get to be opinionated right now. I don't like unilateral drone strikes. I think it's stupid that the United States doesn't have an approved method of authorizing a drone strike. There's not really any presidential or military procedure. There's not like a here's how the stuff has to go. It's pretty much a whole bunch of people get in a room and decide whether or not this person needs to get drone striked. And they don't even really have to keep the records of any of their discussions. I think that's bullcrap. I don't like drones in the first place. However, if you're asking me the best way to get rid of Vladimir Putin, catch him when he's in a car and hit him with one of these big katana drones. I'm not supposed to call them katana drones anymore. The military has nicknamed them Ginsu drones. It's basically a missile with a whole bunch of blades on it. And it's designed at not exploding, but it's designed at literally chopping people to bits. And it has very little collateral damage. And if we're going to shoot somebody with a drone, I would prefer it with the least likely amount of collateral damage. So Ginsu drone, Putin. Don't invade Russia. It's a bad idea. Don't ever land invade Russia. And Russia knows that too, by the way. And they have things set up in such a way to make it almost impossible to do. Let's not invade Russia. It's also probably a bad idea to Ginsu Putin in the first place. As horrible as it sounds and as horrible as that guy is. Discord picture right now is a picture of Dean Phillips with cat ears. There we go. I think invading Russia is a bad idea. I do too. I mean, having the pun titles at all. No. I just started making puns and it was just something that stuck. It's just because I'm a giant turd. I should have said homage instead of reference. So we've got a future hat. Okay, future hat redemption. So here's the future hat. Let me find what Viper asked. Mostly you just want to see the hat. Well, there you go. There's the hat. It is glorious, right? It's pretty friggin' cool. Paid for by viewers like you and the lovely support that I get from viewers like you. But do I think any of the current conflicts could get out of hand and escalate to a nuclear strike? Future hat. Where do I see the next nuclear weapon being shot? That's a really tough one. This is really tough. Like, Russia's not it, and neither is America, and neither is France or England. The easy thing would be to say Israel nuking Tehran, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think that the American military would shoot down any missile that Israel launched that was aimed at Tehran. And I honestly think that one of the biggest reasons that we have our ships so prevalent in the region is to make sure that nobody tries to nuke Israel and Israel doesn't try to nuke anybody else. So if we're eliminating Israel as a nuclear contender, Russia doesn't actually want to use a nuclear weapon. They know that everybody would get around them. North Korea also knows that they can't use a nuclear weapon because If they did, everybody would just beat the crap out of them and they would cease to exist. So this leaves us with a fairly short list of potential contenders for the future. We've got China, India, and Pakistan. In the past, and especially if we rolled back 3 or 4 years ago, and I know I'm rolling backwards with the future hat on, but I moved through time with the future hat, right? That's what Back to the Future does. I would have normally said India and Pakistan exchanging nuclear bombs. But honestly, right now, I think India and China might be the best bet for nuclear exchange. India and China right now are fighting over a region in northern India and southern China. Let me get my map open and we'll go over here and look at what I'm talking about. So if we go to borders and labels, India and China share a border. It's fairly long and it stretches from here and it stops right here with Nepal and Bhutan. But over here, if we zoom in far enough, you can see that here at Arunachal Pradesh, all of these borders are red. And it's because all of these borders are disputed. And especially this region right here, this is highly disputed territory. And China claims it, but India claims it as well. And yeah, that has actually seen live fire. There have been Indian military members and Chinese military members killed in fighting over here. And India is being a bit big for its britches right now. If we also look at the power players in the sort of new regime, if you will, the BRICS countries, the I and the C is India and China, and they both are jockeying for position in Asia and in regional trade. And if I had to bet, I would say that India is likelier to nuke China than China is to nuke India. And I think India would do it as a way to establish the big swinging dong effect. And I think that India would have the mindset that the rest of the world would rally behind them instead of persecuting them, because they did it against China, and everybody knows that China is the bad guy. And that's why I don't think China would initiate nuclear strike, because I don't think China would do anything that would reinforce that global stereotype so broadly. So the future hat in me predicts that if there is a next nuclear strike, it would be India against China. I don't think that's necessarily going to happen, but that's the point of the future hat, just to try to predict the future. So there we go. All right. Let me catch up with chat because I'm so far behind it's scary. I don't think they have enough pilots to keep losing them. Probably have plenty of jets. That's true, Junk Collector, 100%. But they're using their junk. This is also true. They're not using their good stuff. They're using some of their good stuff, but their good stuff is being shot down. And like they're using their hypersonic missiles, and their hypersonic missiles are getting shot down. So they're sketchy about using those in the future. How's that Merchant of Death doing now? Not sure. And now that he's back to Russia after we traded him for a basketball player, well, you know, the Merchant of Death guy was ultimately small beans in politics. I'm going to say some stuff here, and it's going to sound really harsh, but it's the truth. Russia doesn't need that guy to sell arms on the black market. His contact list / pool immediately got transferred to another Russian warlord as soon as he went to jail. Russia didn't lose $1 because that guy went to jail. I'm not saying that he wasn't guilty, and I'm not saying that he shouldn't have spent the rest of his life in prison, but on an actual global impact thing here, he was small potatoes. It was more symbolic keeping him in jail than it was effective. It was punishing him as an individual for crimes that he had committed, and justly so. If anything, it was a miscarriage of justice. I'll give you that. But like, it didn't make the world a worse place because he was out and getting able to sell more guns because Russia was still selling guns. Big Heap, yeah, that's exactly correct for Macron. It was the future hat. What's up, Caldillo? LOL, what? You missed that? Redneck Dawn? I don't know what Redneck Dawn is. U.S. Army is down to recruiting numbers. Yeah, a lot, right? They need to be at 270,000 boots, and they don't have that. Sure. It's flying 15-foot switchblade. Yes, exactly. It's a flying blender. U.S. military has been struggling with recruiting diverse peoples as well. For sure. For sure. And they're not really doing anything to approach that. I wonder if they sell Ginsu knives. I don't know. Maybe so. The Merchant of Death is running for office. I mean, why not? He's got the ultimate thing. Like he was imprisoned for his service to the motherland, right? It's all garbage. It's like we have people that are in the Senate because they won a national championship in college football, right? We shouldn't really be surprised that people transition charismatic authority into legal authority, right? I don't think nuclear strike will happen unless NATO continues to expand and Poland shoots first. Does Poland have nuclear weapons? I don't think Poland has nuclear weapons. They might. I don't think so, though. If you do not know who that is, Shane, yeah, I do know about him. North Korea will shoot their crappy missiles and it'll land in the ocean and Kim Jong-un will be ticked. Yeah, that's another thing. Like, even if North Korea has nukes, there's no guarantee that they're actually going to explode when they get shot because they're crap. Yeah, it's not a good region except for both China and India want it. There are people that live there. It is exactly what you described, though. It's terribly inhospitable. Conflict is going on for a minute, given the last check. Yeah, that's true. And China is massing military along the border, which is a great target for India to hit. How does that territory have so much value for India and China? It used to be part of that piece of territory used to be part of Tibet. And there are people in India that attribute that region to historical development, especially things like Buddhism and religious authority that want it for things like mining resources, but China wants it for the same mining resources, and also they don't like the fact that anything that used to be Tibet isn't theirs. Russia needed to not be losing equipment constantly, correct. It doesn't make them look like the top of the line product, also correct. Redneck Dawn is the U.S. invading Russia. Oh, I see. Poland has nukes, but they were left behind by the USSR. Like Ukraine used to, but then the Ukrainians gave them back. That's interesting. How many nukes do they have? Poland and weapons of mass destruction. Let's just go read this, because this is going to be informational for me and you. Poland is not known or believed to possess nuclear weapons of mass destruction. During the Cold War, Soviet nuclear warheads were stockpiled in Poland and designated to be deployed within the Polish People's Army. Poland was working with Russia to help eliminate the large stockpiles of chemical biological weapons developed by the Warsaw Pact countries. Poland ratified the Geneva Protocol in 1929. Poland ratified a chemical weapons treaty in 1995 and did not declare any offensive programs or chemical weapons stockpiles. At a G8 summit, the Polish-Russian agreement in the sphere of chemical weapons destruction was reached. Chemical weapons agreement will assist Russia in disposing biological weapons. Poland ratified the Biological Weapons Convention on 25th January 1973 and is not known to have any conducted activity prohibited by the biological weapons. Okay, so here's the Soviet nuclear warheads in Poland. Poland has possessed Soviet nuclear warheads. Formerly, Poland was part of the Warsaw Pact. In 1991, Poland announced that they would remove the nuclear-capable delivery systems from their weapons inventory. They decided to keep about 40 of the systems armed with conventional warheads for self-defense. These launchers have now been completely retired. Polish thermonuclear weapons program. Apart from the Soviet warheads designed to deploy within the Polish case with NATO, it's believed that Polish authorities attempted to develop thermonuclear weapons on its own in 1970. Scientists headed by Sylvester Kaliski worked on initiating nuclear fusion using high-energy lasers.
In the aftermath of Russian intervention in 2020, several Polish politicians proposed that Poland host nuclear weapons. Okay, so what it's looking like is that Poland did have nukes that were left behind by Russia, but they dismantled all of them and just kept the missiles. No, it's fine. It's fine, John. I didn't know for sure. This wasn't me this was me learning too. No aspersions cast. I was guessing mineral wealth, but the cultural bit is a biggie. Exactly, Uncle Bill. Yeah. Any sort of mining rights are going to be the ulterior motive, and the cultural things are going to be the surface motive, right? If it was Tibet, I kind of suddenly don't care who gets the territory. Kind of wish neither of them gets it, growing up Buddhist and for history studies' sake. Well, I do think Tibet should be a country. I think that the Tibetan people want to be a country. And I think we all know the problems that exist within that. Convenient excuses, 100%. 100%. All right, so I said I didn't want to be on stream for another hour, and now I'm on stream and it's an hour later. That's fine. I mean, I've had a good time, and I've appreciated the conversation, and the interaction has been excellent. But I do think it's time for me to raid. My voice is getting a little much, and I've still got to teach 3 classes tomorrow. So let's go see who is around for us to raid, and I know exactly where we're going to go because he's raided us the last 3 times that he's streamed. And he is a homie of homies. So we're going to go raid Aristotle. Because he's perpetually bringing homies here. So we're going to go raid him. Oh, shoot. Natty Science is also streaming, though.
The methods. And
oh, dang. Dude. Sorry, Eris, I love you, but we're going to go raid Natty, because I haven't raided Natty in like a hot minute. Natty took a long time off from streaming and is kind of back at it. So we're going to go raid Natty Science, who is PhD in biomedicine or maybe microbiology. He's got a PhD in a whole bunch of really smart sciencey stuff, and he's a really cool guy. And I'm very glad that he's streaming again, so I want to show him some love and bring some eyeballs in his direction. When we go hang out in Natty's channel, I want to make sure that everybody yells adventure and follows Natty and shows back up to give him some support. He's a really cool guy. So we're going to head on out, and I need to make sure that I show my thanks screen. As always, Twitch does not respect the fact that people support me in other ways, so I want to make sure that I give thanks to the people that have supported me in other ways. We've got my patrons on Patreon, and you can see the command to get that if you want it. And you can see people that have donated books to the big old stack of knowledge that I possess in my brain. Thanks to all of those people, and you can see the command there if you would like to send me a book. As always, do not feel like you should or you have to. It is purely there for people that have the funds and the desire. And if you don't have either, that's cool too. I'm glad to see you, and I'll see you next time.